Alright, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today I have an interesting video. We're going to be talking about the difference between a 32 Ford road car and a 32 Ford race car. So let's get right into it. So let's start off with the bodies. What did they change on this car to turn it into a race car compared to the stock car? So the first thing you're going to notice on this car probably is that there's no latching on the hood. The hood has been split into three pieces. You have a side panel, a hood, and the main panel. And these are all Zeus fastenered on. So these things are almost like screws, but you push them down and you turn them maybe half a turn. And that's what holds the body onto the car. Compared to like on a stock car where you have latches and door handles and all of that. This cover pops off, but it is all Zeus. The whole car is basically Zeus fastened together. And before you ask, this is still a steel body 32 Ford, which is pretty rare for a race car. So that kind of makes it unique. So now you might be wondering, well, what's the difference in the engine between a race car and a road car? Well, let's pop the hood off here and find out. So, as you guys can see, the engine in this car looks a little bigger than the engine in this car. So, the Roadster here has the original flathead 4-cylinder. Now, what made the 32 Ford unique was that it was one of the first cars that you could have bought with a V8 in it. But the Roadsters never actually came with a V8. They only came with the 4-cylinder. Now, obviously, that's long gone in this car, and instead it has a 6-cylinder GMC out of an old military truck. And obviously, you guys can see that it's got a little supercharger on it, which makes a little bit of boost. So this motor puts out about 370 to 400 horsepower, while the stock 32 motor puts out about 50 horsepower on its best day. So there's quite a big difference in horsepower between the race car and between the stock car. So now let's move on to the transmissions in these cars. So the original 32 Ford had a three-speed first, second, third with reverse. Had a 3-speed manual transmission that you need the clutch to shift it with. Now, the race car is quite a bit different. In here, we have a 4-speed NASCAR transmission called a Tex 101. You can see here. And this actually does not require the clutch to shift it. All you have to do is press in the clutch to start and stop. When you're in first gear and you roll out, you press in the clutch. And after that, you're shifting it the whole time without the clutch. Which is definitely very race car. And it's a ton of fun compared to driving the original transmission with the clutch. Now let's look at the rear ends in these cars. As you guys can see here, the stock rear end, the stock 32 rear end has a center section with 2 axle tubes. And if you look over here, the axle tubes may look the same, but the center section is quite different. It's actually called a quick change rear end. You can pop this cover out. There's a gear here and a gear here, and you can swap those easily, probably within 10 minutes. And that will allow you to put different gear ratios in to go racing. Now at Bonneville, we put in a super tall ratio, like a 246 or a 231, in order to achieve a high top speed. Now let's get into suspension. The suspension on this car is actually crazily similar to the suspension on this car, even though it's a race car. The only things that have been added is that it has shocks in the front end, but all the suspension geometry is actually the same. Now, because it's land speed racing at Bonneville, you have tons of time to stop. You maybe race 3 miles and have an extra 2 miles to stop. So there's actually no front brakes on the front of this race car, whereas this car still has the original mechanical brakes all the way around. Now in the back, this car does have disc brakes, but it's kind of interesting how you operate them. Let me show you guys. So in the back of this race car, let's see if we can take a look. It's hard to see, but in the back there's actually disc brakes, but it's not regular pedals like you would imagine. It has a handle here for a handbrake, and that's how you operate the rear disc brakes in this car, which is definitely kind of a unique feature to the race car. So let's talk about the interiors next. Now on the 32 Ford Roadster, it's actually pretty comfortable. You have a bench seat here, hop in here. Now I don't have a ton of room because of the chopped roof. As you can see, my head almost hits the roof, but it's fairly roomy in here. Got your clutch there, shifter here. It's not too bad, but the race car is a whole different story. So let's see if we can climb into the race car and show you guys what the interior on her looks like. So to get into the race car, you're gonna step on the back tire here. You're gonna step on the roll bars here and just kind of fall inside. You can actually step on the steering wheel. You're kind of gonna fall inside the car here. And this is far less roomy than the original car. So you got your clutch down here. Remember, just starting and stopping. Gas pedal here, and then with your right hand, you're going to be kind of shifting between your legs down here. So you got first, second, third, fourth. And you don't have to worry about pushing in the clutch. And then you get to the end of the run, you shut your car off here, pull the handbrake to slow down. But as you guys can see here, it is not very roomy at all. And especially once you have your helmet on, your head is wedged in here, you can barely move. It gets tight really, really quickly. So this is what the inside of the race car looks like. Now, I know everybody wants to hear the race car make noise, but unfortunately, at its last trip up to Bonneville, it actually burned a piston in the number 5 cylinder. So we can't actually start it up for you right now, but I will throw in some clips here of us at Bonneville racing and of this car running, because it really is something special to hear. So what does it kind of take to run these cars? Well, I mean, as you can assume, the 4-cylinder is about as easy as it gets. All you need to do is, regular oil change, fill it up on 87, and it's a happy camper. But the race car is quite a different story. When you want to start this thing up, you actually have to plug propane into it here. And we just have a regular bottle of propane like your barbecue. And we start it up on that, warm it up for a while, and then the engine guy will tell you, pull this out, and that turns on the fuel pump and switches it to methanol. And then it switches to methanol, and you turn the propane off, and then that's how you actually warm up the car. So it's kind of a complicated process, but it's kind of interesting. On propane, the car sounds kind of not weak, but it sounds kind of funny on propane. Then you switch it to methanol, and it really starts to sound good. So that is how you actually warm up the race car. And if you don't know what methanol is, it's just an alcohol fuel. I believe it's just some sort of ethanol mixture. Someone correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So now that you kind of know a little bit about what the street car versus the race car is like, let me know in the comments down below, which one would you rather own? Are you taking the race car out to Bonneville, or would you rather have an everyday cruiser to drive around in, like the Roadster here?